Okay, thank you. Damien Hines?
Thank you, Julian. Following on from that discussion with the chair about the international devolution of TikTok, can you tell us a bit about TikTok Global and what its geographical split would be by users and what the implications would be for your sites in the future? SITES, I should stress, in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the deal in the US, I think, is one of the most interesting political, commercial tech stories at the moment. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to give you more insight on that than there is in our statement. So I can't comment on that one because of the ongoing commercial situation there. But I can talk to you about kind of user data, where it's stored, if that's kind of where you want me to go.
Well, I'm not asking you to go beyond what's in your statement, maybe just help us to understand what's in your statement. So TikTok Global, what does it mean? Does that mean the world outside China? Does it mean the Americas? What does it mean?
So just to explain kind of where we are now, TikTok does not operate in China. TikTok only operates outside of China. TikTok data globally is stored in the US and Singapore. For TikTok users in the UK, the app is provided by TikTok Information Technologies UK. The data is taken care of by the UK as well. And the management team for the UK is based here in London and is the European management team. TikTok Information Technologies UK, the company I work for, the company that provides the UK services, is ultimately owned by ByteDance Limited, which is a company outside of China. ByteDance Limited has a number of investors. They're the big American investors. They're all listed on our website, bytedance.com, on the front page. But they're the same investors who are part of the ongoing discussion. And the board of that company is 5 directors: Yiming Zhang, our CEO and founder, and the 4 heads of those.
So to be clear, you're saying despite the name, TikTok Global will not be global. It will be the Americas or North America or the continental United States. Or what are you saying?
TikTok Global is the global business. It is TikTok. But as I said, I'm not going to provide a running commentary on the commercial deal in the US. I hope you can understand why that's difficult.
Well, with respect, if it's global, then it's not just the commercial deal in the US, it's the deal that affects the United Kingdom, Europe and elsewhere in the world as well, presumably.
Well, I'm not going to comment because it's an ongoing commercial deal. It's not because it's specific to the US, but I think that you can understand why I can't discuss an ongoing commercial deal.
I can understand why you can't discuss the details of your negotiations and price setting, but I think there is a legitimate public interest, not only in the United States but around the world, about what here is being proposed and the implications for all sorts of things like the ownership of intellectual property, the location of data, the payment of taxes, what happens with our children and their activity online. These are all legitimate items of public interest which should not be subject to confidentiality of price setting.
Sorry, I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm happy to answer each of those and I can go through them in detail. It's just on a specific deal I can't answer. So, but each of your points I can go through: data security.
Can we start with who will own the intellectual property?
The intellectual property, so TikTok is owned by ByteDance Limited.
And ByteDance Limited is a wholly owned subsidiary of who?
ByteDance Limited is the parent company.
Okay.
So I think just to explain the structure.
And that will be, well, actually, do you know what might be helpful actually is if you could write to us with a diagrammatic explanation of the structure, because otherwise I think it might take up a lot of our time today. But just to be clear,
if you go to bytedance.com, it's on the front page. You can see it yourself.
Okay. Well, just to be clear, I know I've used that phrase a number of times already, but to be clear, what most people would call the Chinese-owned parent company is TikTok Limited. They will own the intellectual property.
That's not quite right. So can I just explain? Okay, let me just very briefly explain. So just want to, if you give me a moment, I think I can help you understand. So there's ByteDance China, this hand, okay? Then there's TikTok and all the TikTok entities. Both report to ByteDance Limited, which is outside of China. ByteDance Limited is made up of board of directors of the four investors and Yiming Zhang, the CEO of the company. So it is not the case that TikTok reports into China. It is the case that the international business and the Chinese business both report into ByteDance Limited, which is outside of China. So I know this is a common misperception that TikTok somehow reports into China. That is not quite the case.
But the intellectual property is owned by a common parent company which provides technology, provides the algorithms and the systems and processes both to a Chinese subsidiary and to an ex-China subsidiary. Is that correct?
It is not quite accurate. I think if the question you're getting at is around China access to data, I can help answer that if that's a concern.
No, that wasn't really what my question was about. So we're talking about the creation of a new entity called TikTok Global. What I'm trying to understand is how separate it is from the existing entity and from people's concerns, and you may say they're not legitimate and they're nothing to worry about, but those concerns exist about the involvement with the Chinese government and who ultimately sees and controls data. So although there are many complications and convolutions we could go through around corporate structures, the basic point is that the IP is not being separated. Is that correct?
So I completely understand your concern, and I think it is entirely legitimate to ask about this. The reason we've set up the company in this way, with this international business separated from China, owned by a parent company outside of China, is in order to address these kinds of concerns. And beyond that, we've also worked with national security assessments in Australia and Germany, both of which have cleared us. We've also made the commitments around transparency, that we've allowed people to come and inspect the code, the algorithm, so that they can see there is nothing untoward happening. We've also got strict data controls in place. What we've pledged globally for that business outside of China is that instead of it just being me saying, trust us, there is secure access, there is no access to individual user data from China. What we've also said is that we will allow a third-party company, or indeed a regulator or a national security investigator, to come in and inspect that code or inspect our processes. And the reason why we've done that is because we do understand these concerns and we want to address them.
And who owns this new entity?
The one in the US. You will have seen the statement that is proposed, but I don't want to go into that at the moment.
But it appears to be the claim is that it's 80% owned by ByteDance, 10% by Oracle, and 10% by Walmart.
12.5 and 7.5, but broadly yes.
And it sounds like there's been some discussions, at least had, maybe not a final agreement, but some discussions had with the US authorities about the payment of tax, and this figure of £5 billion has been floating around, which may just be an estimate of how much tax the company would be liable for in the US anyway over a number of years. There's also been talk about this Patriotic Education Foundation. What are the implications of that for tax that you pay in other jurisdictions?
So let me talk about tax structure in the UK, because I think it is, again, something we do slightly differently to the other companies you've spoken to. UK tax will be paid fully in the UK. We're permanently established in the UK, and that's our starting place. That's where we'll remain regardless of what happens. So whatever changes there are, the UK business will pay full corporation tax on the basis of being permanently established in this country.
Based on the allocation of IP rights and royalties in proportion to users, presumably?
I don't
as opposed to saying the IP is located in some other jurisdiction and the UK subsidiary has to pay them to use the brand, use the algorithms, use the technology, and so therefore the economic activity is in that other jurisdiction.
I think the permanent establishment means that we have to pay corporation tax at the full rate I think that
It certainly will mean that. The question is corporation tax on what amount? That's what these policy questions turn on. So is the way the system works that the UK subsidiary is paying a fee to some other part of the corporate structure? That is therefore where you count the economic activity as happening, and that reduces your tax liability in the UK?
Currently not, as I'm aware, but I can't speculate on kind of what the future model is. But what I can promise is we will pay full corporation tax. We're permanently established here, and I think that is a step ahead of the other companies you've had in front of you.
Can I just ask you briefly about something else? So this month, the age-appropriate design code comes into force. There's a 12-month implementation period, but it comes in this month, and from September 2021 will be mandatory. How will that change your business operations?
It's already changing our business operations. I mean, I think it's one of the most forward-looking, interesting pieces of legislation. It's very interesting to see child safety being driven by a data protection authority, and in those terms. You really have to put thinking about younger users at the centre of things. One of the things that we've started to do as part of that is we've been running what we call family focus groups. You'd be welcome to attend one of those. We've run 9 of them over the last year. And what we try and do is better understand what do those parents and teenagers want, what do they expect. And so some of the things that we've learned from that is they're not comfortable with the idea of us taking lots of data to prove their age off them. They do want privacy and safety settings, and video form rather than.
Sorry, did you say they're not comfortable with you taking data to prove their age? Well, of course they're not. What young person has ever been comfortable with the idea of being asked to prove they're 16, 18, or what have you?
Yeah, but it was the parents as well.
Did you issue a press release about that? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think it was the parents. It was the parents who were sort of saying, actually, I don't want every app on my device getting some passport, whatever the proof of age is you can have for a 13-year-old. They were much more happy with the idea of being government or even schools that acted as the kind of verifier of a child's age, and then rather than it being data being given to this plethora of apps, the parents were much happier with it being, is there a way that we can ensure that if we have to verify a child's age, it's only a small, it's only 1 or 2 times that we do that, which can either be kind of government thing, or the other way would be for it to be at the app store level. So I think there's lots interesting coming through from that. We're listening, we're learning, and we're adjusting, and we already have an internal team that's working on that, headed up by our head of child safety.
And finally, from me, Principle 1 in the new code says the best interests of the child should be a primary consideration when you design and develop online services likely to be accessed by a child. What do you think is in the best interests of the child in terms of the amount of time that it is helpful for a child or young person to spend online each day?
Yeah, I'm going to say that actually, both as a parent and in this role, I think the question is, what are they doing online rather than just the time spent? One of the things that differentiates TikTok from the other apps is that TikTok is somewhere people come to create. A much higher ratio of our users are creating things. I think when I tweeted that I was coming to this hearing, one of the journalists tweeted, "Are you going to teach everyone to dance?" Which was a joke, obviously, but I think there is a sense that TikTok makes you do things rather than just passively sitting in front of the screen. Now, that said, I do think it's important to have time limits. So with family pairing, the parent can set a time limit, but what we also do beyond that is that for every user, if you've been using the device for more than 60 minutes in the evening or 80 minutes in the daytime, we've created videos that will pop up that say, maybe you should think about doing something else. So we are thinking about screen time. It is a concern, but I wouldn't put screen time above kind of quality time. What are you actually doing on the app?
Thank you.